What up, folks? Welcome in after, what are we talking about? 2-week hiatus. Oddsmakers is back. Jonathan Von Tobel, Jay Kornegay, and John Murray. I was so excited, guys, that I decided to wear a sport coat today. How about that, huh? What do you think?
I think it's pretty nice. I mean, you did that for us.
Yeah,
you just didn't come from a job interview.
No, nothing like
okay.
that.
Job interview? Interview?
I'm still under contract.
I thought you went in front of the board or something.
No. I really like the T-shirt sport coat combo because it allows me to be comfortable while also looking, professional.
Tamper.
You know what
Sure.
I mean? Black is a very professional combo. How's it been going, guys? What's going on? I haven't seen you in 2 weeks.
I know it's been a little crazy. I mean, people think that we get this lull between Super Bowl and March Madness. Somewhat, but for us, it's been a little crazy. We're still dealing with 6 other jurisdictions across the country. That always keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. Well, and March Madness is essentially here. These conference tournaments are underway, and we're going to get to those in some depth in a little bit. But we did have some pretty big events up in the time that we were off. I wanted to ask you guys first off. UFC 285 was a pretty big one. I had a lot of fun. It was one of the first UFC cards in a while that I cleared out the schedule. I was like, I'm sitting down, I'm watching this. Johnny Bones Jones making his return, a very quick return at that. How did that go off for you guys? Was that a very popular event with a big star like that at the top?
I'm going to defer to John, but all I know is 12 out of 13 favorites won.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or is it 13 out of 14?
Is it 13 out of 14 or 12 out of 13?
Not only that, but we had a guy that had all these parlays to all the favorites, ending with Shevchenko, and he made a big bet on Grasso to hedge his bets, and he won on that. So, yeah, it was not good. All I can say is I'm really glad I didn't pay to go to that event. On paper, it looked so good, and the fights were so bad. And I don't know what happened in the John Jones fight. I guess you could call that a fight. Not a great night for the house. A little bit disappointing in terms of the fights themselves, I thought. I would have liked to have seen the other guy at least attempt to fight John Jones. I hope he was compensated well.
Yeah, why were you attracted to that card? Because I asked John prior to Saturday, and he said, the card is okay. But you were...
Oh, it's all about John Jones. He's a star. And I'm a Valentina Shevchenko fan. I like the way that she fights. So it was actually cool. And as a fan of her, it was actually kind of cool to watch her lose because she's been so good. What was that? She was working on 8 straight title defenses, I think it was. So I was a fan of the fighters on the card. Also, he was on the prelims, but I'm a Cody Garbrandt guy too. So there were some names on the card that I really enjoyed.
I think it was
Bo Nickel, right?
Bo Nickel's the guy that the UFC is grooming to be a star.
Yep.
He's supposed to be a star. They had him lead off the pay-per-view. They gave him an opponent that he was supposed to destroy.
Which he did.
He destroyed that individual. So that went according to script.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, Jay. My wife, who I think has watched a total of 3 UFC events, when I told her who was fighting, he was like, "Oh, he's back." Right? We went to Daniel Cormier, and John Jones won. We saw that live. So since there,
that was 7 years ago.
Yeah,
I was at that fight.
Yeah, so was I.
She's been a fan since?
Since. And actually, John, I didn't pay for it. A mutual friend, Matt Radmanovich. Give him a shout-out.
Matt Radmanovich, tremendous young man.
He gave me some crumpled tickets. It was great. To operate in a spot where you have, we're sitting at a bar, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, do you want these?" And pulls crumpled UFC 180, whatever it was, tickets out for Jones and Cormier. I was like, yeah.
I probably got into that event through Matt Radmanovich.
Okay.
I can't remember. That was a long time ago. But Matt is such a stellar young man.
Really is.
He probably also got me my tickets, although I just don't remember. It's too long ago.
Yes. So
you have a lot of connections there.
I had to buy for Jones Cormier too, if you recall that event. Yeah, I know.
Poor baby.
That event was in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And that was a great fight.
It was.
That was a great fight. And then they took John's win away from him a few days later.
Yeah, I'm a low-key MMA fan, Jay. So I've been watching for a while. Throughout the pandemic, that was one of the things that I really followed because that was one of the first things back. But I was at, one of my favorite fights that I was at in person was Dillashaw Barao 1, where Dillashaw was on PEDs and was awesome and lightning quick.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was the night that Cormier fought Dan Henderson.
Yep, chucked him.
Picked him up and just carried him around, just threw him to the ground whenever he felt like it. That was a fun. That was probably Memorial Day weekend, 14.
That's right. So also went to that for free. Sorry, Dana White. You have not gotten my money for actual tickets yet.
I had to pay for that one too, Dana.
So
we've got some paying customers here. We have some non-paying customers.
I got the tickets through the right way. We'll just put it that way. It's not like I'm legally streaming. And I purchased my fight over the weekend. So I was doing it the right way.
Okay.
I'll tell you that much.
I respect that.
For you.
So with that, yes, spent my hard-earned money. I know Jay's a big MMA guy. College basketball conference tournaments.
You know what? I'm not a big. I am a fan, though. I really do enjoy the fights.
Jay always texts me on Saturdays. He says, what are the sharp guys on? What do you like? I'm going to watch.
He's like, hey, it's
So
at
I
the
would-
Apex, smaller cage. You think there's going to be a knockout here?
If you ask me, like, do I think Jay's an MMA fan? I would say yes.
Okay.
I enjoy it. I just don't go out of my way to go to any of the events. I think I've been to 2 overall this time, and I enjoyed them. As far as pay-per-view, I've probably bought more than a dozen of those fights. My wife enjoys it. When she likes to look at it and says, all right, when they're being introduced, I'll go, which one do you like? And then she'll take obviously the most intimidating figure that's out there all the time.
I thought you were going to say something different.
Oh yeah,
I thought you were going to go like the sexiest
Yeah.
guy or something.
I thought you were gonna say the
she
handsome
has enough
guy, yeah.
sexy in her life.
Right, that's fair.
Right.
Okay.
No, great energy at the UFC events, but I thought one of the things that soured me on Saturday was those lame Roadhouse things. That was really lame. And now I won't see the movie Roadhouse. Plus, they shouldn't even remake movies like that. It's a terrific film with Patrick Swayze.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
We didn't need to remake Roadhouse.
Wade. What's the guy's name? Wade. What was his buddy's name?
You're asking the wrong
come on.
guy.
I mean, we know Dalton. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Dalton.
I don't
But
know.
his counterpart was Wade. It was Sam Elliott, the
Elliott.
character, the actor. But I
I don't
can't.
remember.
I can't remember.
My mind is too filled.
It was
with all
on the
this,
other night.
Nonsense.
That's all good.
It's funny. I'm listening to you guys struggle.
It was a cool name.
Well, they remade Point Break, and the remake is horrifyingly bad. And I hope that doesn't happen with Roadhouse. But
Talking about Wade Garrett. Is that what you're looking
Wade
for?
Garrett.
Garrett.
Yeah.
I'll never know because I'll never watch
That's it.
Right. I'll also never watch that movie, so I'll take your word on it. Maybe just to make people angry, I'll go watch the Jake Gyllenhaal one and say how fantastic it was.
No. Don't do it, John.
All right.
Original's terrific.
We do have college hoops, though, so it's conference tournament week.
Yep.
So I'll ask you guys this because we're actually rapidly approaching, of course, the actual madness, or people refer to it as. But March Madness is such named because starting the first week of March, you get conference tournaments as well. It's not just the NCAA tournament. So from a handle and increase there, as it starts essentially last week, because you had some of those smaller tournaments, how much of an uptick in handle you guys see on a night-to-night basis with some of these college games, even some of these smaller conference tournaments as we get closer to March Madness?
It snowballs. It certainly does. I mean, you can understand why some of those earlier tournaments get little attention, but as we get into the second week of these conference tournaments, you start talking about some of the bigger five, some of the bigger mid-major tournaments, and we start to see a lot of those folks in town as well. We host, 6 tournaments here in Las Vegas. You start to see their fans. So it really just snowballs from that first go of some of the smaller tournaments into the major tournaments. In the next few days that we are hosting all these things, you're going to see some good, solid crowds in the sports books across town.
Yeah, I think we got Pac-12, Mountain West, the West Coast Conference, the WAC. They have the Big West. Like, there's a ton of this, and it's funny because now out here, the added implication what you're talking about, Jay, because there's a lot more people in your casino too. So there's a sports betting aspect, and just from the standpoint of the actual building itself, you get a lot more bodies out here and a lot more money spent. So it's a really big week.
It's really cool. I'd like to see all the fans around town. You go around town, and it's just kind of like when you've been to a Final Four and you just see all the colors, and the fans they're into it. And it's understandable why Las Vegas hosts a lot of these tournaments. A lot of the fans have fun. I talk to them all the time, and that whenever they say, and this is from the fans, whenever they say that they're thinking about taking another poll or survey if they want to do it in a different city, different venue, they always vote for Las Vegas.
Have you guys seen a dip at all, or do you expect maybe a dip in terms of people coming out here for the actual NCAA tournament since sports betting is available in some of the other jurisdictions?
It's tough to say. I don't know. There's two sides of that. Some that are going to stay home because they can do it there now, but there's others that still want to experience Las Vegas. And we haven't seen any drops in attendance or bodies that we've seen in the last couple of years. Everything has gone up. Even though we've seen huge numbers across the country, the numbers in Las Vegas have been very steady.
He's got 2 thumbs and he'll be out here drinking Jack and Cokes on that next Friday.
Jack and Coke.
This guy.
I was going to say Adam Hill.
No, I don't think Adam's a Jack and Coke guy.
No, he's not.
He's a coffee and Bailey's
I just wanted to. We already read in a Radmanovich reference.
Yeah,
I,
that's
just,
a good one.
I was forcing that in with the crowbar.
SoCo
I think
and
this
Sprite.
is a better. I think this is a better week than next week to come out here.
Yeah?
Really?
Next week is too crazy. Unless you've got like some kind of a connection that can get you set up with a nice place to sit. Next week is too crazy.
Sorry, I was just clearing my throat.
Well,
And this week you've got. I didn't catch that. This week you've got games you can actually go to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I think is a big perk. And the hotel rooms are a lot cheaper.
I got my boys coming in tomorrow. So
Your boys.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And it's been like
Going back to the
20,
Colorado
20
State
years.
days, huh?
Yeah, we're going. See, my Rams are up by 7, 10 minutes ago. We're looking good there.
Good. I laid it with him. Let's go.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
2.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right, me and Jay are already off on a really solid. Actually, once we're done, it'll give you an idea of where we're recording this. But I'm actually heading down to the Thomas and Mack Center out here.
That's why you wore the jacket.
No, it's actually because I was at a different job before.
So
I
you
actually
got-
have a change of my outerwear to wear out to the Thomas and Mack Center. Just a nice pullover black sweater,
You going to be there tomorrow?
You have a lot of
Oh, yeah.
jobs.
Okay.
All day.
You're one of the reasons why the unemployment rate is down so much. You've got like 6, 7, or up some. You've got 6 or 7 jobs.
Well, I think you can make the argument. Well, shouldn't it be up because I'm taking somebody's job? Because
I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to keep track. It's hard to keep track with these statistics, John. I know you work a lot of jobs. I just have the one.
All right. So, from a conference tournament standpoint, or actually, let's do this before we get to the conference tournaments. As we get closer to the NCAA tournament, has anything from a liability standpoint stuck out? Like, how does that? Is that a slow burn for you guys in terms of national championship? When it comes to liability, like I would assume a lot of the futures tickets come in like now, right, to win the NCAA tournament with people getting more into it.
They'll really start to come in after the brackets are
Yeah.
set. So Sunday's the selection show. Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, people get to town and start betting the games. Wednesday, Thursday, that's when you'll get a huge number of your public bets. For sure, will come in then. I remember last year, once the brackets were set, we started writing significant bets on Arizona and Gonzaga, and that was one of the big reasons we won as much as we did on Kansas. So I think you'll see some really big tickets come in next week.
Yeah, we haven't had that many big tickets. I was just kind of looking over. We had, a couple of big bets on Houston, a couple of larger wagers on Gonzaga. In fact, those are our 2 biggest liabilities heading into, conference tournament week. But other than that, the guys are watching it. We have a great team here that just watches it throughout the entire year. And we kind of monitor it. John and I will peek at it every once in a while, and I haven't looked at it in about a week or so. But we still, not tremendous liability, but certainly some liability hooked up against Houston, Gonzaga, and even Texas.
So is this? I would assume this is kind of an event that you guys do. You guys generally do well in a lot of stuff, but what I mean by that is I think a lot of people fall in love with the idea of a Cinderella, right? But generally, Cinderella is a team that wins like 3 or 4 games, maybe makes it to like an Elite 8, and then ultimately fizzles out. But when everything is said and done, the teams that win these NCAA tournaments are usually teams we've seen at the top of the board for throughout the entire season, right?
Yeah. Well, the cream usually rises,
Yes.
right? But, we do have those VCUs out there, George Masons out there, Chicago, or Illinois.
So maybe you
Chicago.
get dinged in like to make a Final Four market, but not like an NCAA
Yeah.
Well,
championship.
we were gonna lose quite a bit in the last year if North Carolina had beat Kansas.
Yeah.
You think back to that beginning of that tournament, they were an 8th seed. They had to play Baylor in the second round. They're not going to go to the national championship game, and we had significant liability on them. We were unhappy when they beat Duke, and I just remember we needed Kansas so big in that game, not just because we won a lot on Kansas, because we were going to lose a lot on North Carolina. So that one got a lot closer.
But
than they
was that
usually
due to
do.
futures, or was it because of the game betting?
It was a
little bit of both,
futures
maybe.
outside of Nevada.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
futures outside
Okay.
of Nevada. We had significant liability on the Tar Heels.
Yeah.
But luckily, the Jayhawks came back for us after a lackluster first half, and we did very well.
But some of those teams that come out of nowhere, yes, they can make that mini run, and maybe you shouldn't call it mini. If maybe they win 3 games
The
or
St.
something
Peters
like that.
of the world,
Well,
right?
that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. It's like George Mason, we had a lot of liability on VCU, and they had a play-in game. They were a play-in team that had to win not 6 games, but 7 games, and they get all the way there. That was a little nerve-wracking because that was a tremendous amount of liability. And I love seeing those teams go, but usually when we get to the Final Four,
You're like,
It's
all right,
cream of the crop. Cream of the crop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
I
it.
don't like it when they win. I know that's a controversial opinion. I'd rather see the good teams win and have the better matchups. I know, like, everyone gets so stoked when you see these upsets on the first weekend, but then you get to the Sweet 16, you got some crappy game where the one seed's like 14-point favorite.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yep.
John, I'd rather see the
But
I'd rather see the best teams.
But that
I'm elitist
upset,
as well.
but that upset is sweet. You know, in that first, I do.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. I like.
No,
it.
it's fun, but it can
very
lead to some
controversial.
big liabilities, and I'd rather see the best teams play each other.
I agree with John. I didn't tag Jay for like the sentimental type, but
Why are you kicking me?
it seems like that is the case. All right, we'll get more on this because actually, once we get the bracket set and we're going to be back on for Oddsmakers, there's a lot of questions I have about those seeding matchups, so we can save those for when we actually get to them. By the way, we mentioned North Carolina. Should note that oddly similar situation for North Carolina as they enter the ACC tournament, losing to Duke in the regular season finale, essentially on the bubble, and need to win the way in at this point for the Tar Heels. So. Before we get to some of these individual conference tournaments, has anything notable come through at all? Like in some of these, like you guys put up odds to win specific conference tournaments. Anything of note in college hoops that has come in so far at all?
I know we have some liability on Michigan for the Big Ten and Hawaii for is it
Big
the WAC?
West. Yeah.
Big West. Is it Big West or WAC?
Yeah, Big West.
Big West, yeah. Hawaii of all teams. So not too much other than that. I mean, it's just kind of been trickling in. But some of those, I guess, across the country, some of those bigger wages were on those two teams. Go figure.
All right, Rainbow Warriors. And
Didn't they drop Rainbow?
did they really?
Yeah.
They'll always be the
You
Rainbow.
gonna start calling them the Devil Rays when we do baseball shows? John? Whoa! I don't know what you're talking
Can't
about.
Yeah, you can't say that one.
Sharon.
I'm not going to even think about saying
Never
that
heard
one.
of an organization like
Yeah,
that.
that's I can't believe somebody would
Yeah.
even go that far as to name an organization
really
with that mascot.
Jeez, Wes Unsold over there?
So, all right, you mentioned Michigan. We can start at the Big Ten, currently projected right now to have about 10 bids or so. And we can look at this, like, I guess we can go this any way you want. We can look at this big picture or when it comes to the tournament or when it comes to the national picture, because I think it's pretty fascinating. You have a lot of teams in this conference, guys, that at one point or still do have a large national footprint in terms of the way that they're perceived, right? Purdue, for example, got off to the start that they did, but they came in the NCAA tournament sliding or the conference tournament sliding, not anywhere near as hot as they were, I think, or as dangerous. Indiana's a team that at one point I think they ranked 10th, maybe even higher in the national rankings. They got smacked by Kansas, injuries hit them, and now they're a little bit disjointed. When it comes to the Big Ten overall, this is always a conference that has a lot of teams, but generally does really not that much when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
All I know is when I talk to some of the guys that follow this closely is that they've lost all their confidence in Purdue. Yeah, and that's understandable with their recent performances. But Purdue was so hot in the middle of the season that there was a lot of interest in them. But now it's like even the guys, even the general public. So the general public and some of the sharps out there has just totally jumped off this Purdue wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Big Ten is projected to get 10 bids.
Yeah.
No.
Can you believe that?
Come on. Let's be serious, folks. The 10th team in the Big 12 is a lot better than a lot of these Big 10 teams.
I'm glad you actually brought this point up. So this is what I think, and this is a really fascinating dynamic because we see year after year the Big Ten gets all these teams in, but because they all just cannibalize on one another, there's this perception that it's a good conference when in reality, just a bunch of half-court oriented teams that play 7-footers and kind of stink.
That's a shot at Purdue.
It is. No, it is. Like it's a shot at a lot of these teams.
Okay.
They're just slow-paced and boring teams that all win on the road, or excuse me, win at home, and so you think that these teams are really good, and then you get to the second weekend, and you're like, oh, there's no Big Ten teams left because they chronically underperform. And John, to your point, you look at a team like the Big 12, and I know this is not something you guys have on hand, but I would wager that if you were taking the power ratings of Big 12 teams versus Big 10 teams, the Big 12 would come out on top. That is,
you would win that wager, and if the SEC and the Big 10 are both getting more bids than the Big 12, there's a problem because even the schools at the bottom. I think Oklahoma is the last seed in the Big 12 tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They're the 10th seed. I watched them smash Alabama.
Correct.
In the middle of the regular season. So there's a problem there because the Big 12 they're a historically good conference this year. Every team in the Big 12 could win a tournament game.
Mm-hmm.
They're much better than the Big 10 and the SEC.
Yeah, from Ken Palm projections, and for people who like these or not, whatever it is, you have 3 teams that are currently ranked two teams that are ranked inside the top 10 from the Big 12, but inside of the top 20, you've got a litany of these teams. When you're talking about Texas, Kansas, Baylor, West Virginia, and to your point, John, when you look at some of these, like Oklahoma is, I would say, because they're not going to get into the NCAA tournament unless they win an automatic bid now. Mm-hmm. like you look at their schedule at times in terms of what they had to go through. I mean, look at some of this stuff. You're talking about West Virginia, Baylor, Kansas State, Texas. Like that's a 4 or 5 game stretch in the Big 12. It's horrendous.
That's how the Big 12 regular season was.
Yep.
And if Oklahoma was in the ACC, they'd probably be like a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament, and now they've got no chance to be in it. So I don't know. I got a lot of issues with that, John.
Like, okay,
If the Big 10 gets 10 bids, there's a problem.
let them know. West
When was the
Virginia.
last time the Big 10 won it all? 2000.
Right? Yeah.
Mateen Cleaves.
Michigan made it to a couple of
Michigan
national
State,
championships, but they
Michigan's
didn't
been
win.
in the title game a couple times, and Ohio State lost in the title game to Florida. But you got to go back to 2000. Michigan State, Mateen Cleaves, and the guys from Flint, the Flintstones, Charlie Bell, Mo Pete. That team, that was the last Big Ten team.
They've had a few, more than a few Final Four teams. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Ohio State's had some really good teams.
They win their regions. It seems like they do okay in their own region, but beyond that, it's
Indiana
tough
went to a
hurdle.
Final Four. They lost to Maryland, if you can recall that, with Jared Jeffries on
Of course, yeah. No, I would agree with that. And
that was over 20 years ago. I mean, we're talking about a conference that just has not excelled. Meanwhile, the Big 12, they won it last year. They won it the year before. And then you go back to 19, which was the most recent one because 20 got canceled.
Yep.
Texas Tech probably should have won the national championship.
John is also very conference loyal. As
I'm
West Virginia.
No. I'm a lifelong Big East fan. When I was going to school, West Virginia was in the Big East.
Okay.
I'm just telling you that the Big 12 is easily the best conference.
Okay.
By far.
Will you guys hang markets like winner of national championship in conference, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Conference to win the national
conference
championship.
wins.
There we go.
When conference wins is always a very
conference
popular
wins,
one.
yeah.
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 See, I like that too. So win totals essentially for conferences in there and everything.
Yeah,
So
very popular.
But if I know the NCAA tournament, whatever we hang in the Big 12, it'll go under.
Yeah.
Because everything we've learned the first 5 months is going to go out the window starting on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, go ahead, G.
I was going to say, if they get 10 in, it's right because we've been dissing them for the last 5 minutes. They'll probably win 9 out of the 10 games.
And the national championship game, Purdue and Indiana. Oh, this is awesome. Yeah.
Oh, that would suck though.
That would totally
Do you
suck.
want to give out your Twitter address right now?
I don't
so
care.
lame.
It's fine.
I'll tell you what.
I like to be told when I'm wrong. It happens all the time.
You know what? I'll be wrong. I'm ready. Are you ready for this? How about this proclamation? Over under 1.5 wins for Purdue. Under. Let's go.
You don't think Purdue's a Sweet 16 team?
No.
What seed are they going to be?
I'd like to.
I'd say 2 or 3.
No?
They're on the. Let me see. I'll
I think
tell you
they've
right
fallen
now.
off the one line.
I think they've fallen off one because they've not been playing very
They've been
well
playing
at all.
terrible the last couple of weeks.
No, Lenardi's. Yeah, Lenardi's got them at the top as the top 2 seed. So they could potentially
so
get the
they're
number
Oh, yeah,
one.
if they won the Big
Yeah.
Ten tournament.
If they won the Big Ten
overall.
tournament.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Okay.
So they have a path.
You'd be confident in betting them to go out in the second round as a 1 seed?
Yep. Currently projected, if we get this any near accurate, you get like a Duke or a USC in the second round. Over. Curtains.
I wouldn't want to play Duke in the second round.
Oh, Duke's been playing pretty well.
No, they have been.
And they're coming off of a good end of the regular season where they went to North Carolina in a spot where the Tar Heels had to have it.
And where will their region be? Like 3 minutes from campus?
It's not going to be at Cameron Indoor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, usually the Duke bracket is always and in Greensboro
Right.
every time.
Every single time.
So I'm guessing they'll get a favorable location.
Yeah,
Just call
even
me-
as like a 7 seed.
Call me a cynic.
Correct.
Yes,
I would agree.
Since
with
it
that.
happens every single year, I think I've
It's
picked
just
up a trend.
coincidence.
Right now, Lenardi's got him projected in the Columbus region at this point, out in Columbus
We'll
to
see
start
what
the
happens.
first round. But
We'll see what happens, John.
you can only do so much when it comes to the projections. Speaking of the ACC, another conference that seems to have kind of a down year, and it ties into really what we're talking about with North Carolina, who is in an eerily similar position. But you talk like if you go to the ACC, right? And again, I use Ken Pond projections a lot. Duke is the highest rated ACC team at 31st. Like this seems to be a really weak year for the ACC.
It's a down year. I mean, Miami. No offense to them because I like Jim Larinaga, but Miami's the 1 seed in the ACC tournament. I mean that is a down year in the ACC. I think Hubert Davis. They had an incredible run to the final last year, and that's the only reason why he isn't on a hot seat of sorts. Like for that roster to be on the bubble on March 8th, and last year they were an 8 seed. That's certainly below North Carolina's expectations. I would call that 2 straight very poor regular seasons for North Carolina.
Yeah. And they need to win, by the way. They're on the first 4 out for a lot of projections. So, like, they need to, one would argue, win the ACC tournament or at least get to the ACC tournament final, at the very least, and stack up some wins. And even then, as we're talking about, those wins in the ACC are not as impressive anymore. But on Miami's front, Will you guys see an uptick in terms of tickets on a team like Miami, who pretty much brings everybody back and, right, everybody thinks, hey, they can make that run again. Why not bet on the Hurricanes to kind of come in and win the NCAA tournament?
I think so, but they leveled up in the Elite Eight,
Yeah.
and they got slaughtered by Kansas in that game. So I don't know that. I think they're a team that could win a game or two, draw dependent, but as far as like realistically winning a national championship, I don't see that.
Yeah.
Although it is pretty open this year.
How many times have we seen, when we talk about this tournament and then we talk about the same thing about how this conference is overrated, this one's underrated, and then how many times has it happened when we sit there talking about how down year a conference has had, and then they do well? All
Almost
of a
every
sudden,
time.
it's like 5 teams in the Sweet 16.
So true.
It's like crazy.
Like almost every time. That's why I said everything we think we know, we're going to be thrown out the window.
Well, and the setting lends itself to that, right? These are single elimination basketball contests. If you were playing series, then obviously the cream would rise even faster to the top if you're playing the best of whatever. But when you get these one-off elimination settings, you get Team X, who's one of the better ones in the conference, has a cold shooting night, and all of a sudden you're just you're going home.
I'm already looking forward to betting on St. Mary's in the first round, because they lost to Gonzaga by like $1 million last night. So I'll be betting St. Mary's. And then I like to fade the teams that kind of come out of nowhere or semi out of nowhere and win their tournaments this weekend. Like Iowa last year was a really good example.
Yep.
They won the Big Ten. They were a trendy pick. They lost to Richmond in a 5-12 game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be looking for little spots like that because I think the value will be there in terms of the
and had a popular player, right? Keegan Murray on Iowa
Keegan
year,
Murray.
and he was a guy that everybody really loved. So speaking of Gonzaga and St. Mary's, that's actually a really fascinating dynamic because the West Coast Conference is only going to get 2 coming out there, and that's going to be those 2 that played for the West Coast Conference Championship just last night. I wanted to start with Gonzaga first because if you're looking at them in the big picture, I think you could argue that this year, from like a betting perspective, the market was really high on them, but they weren't a good spread team. The market was a little too high. Mm-hmm. But this is still a team that leads the league in offensive rating, that just smacked one of the best defensive teams in the country on a neutral site. We'll call it neutral, even though Orleans is a little bit more Zags-oriented. Is this actually the year where Gonzaga comes in maybe a little undervalued and could actually win a national championship, we'll say? Because they've made these runs. One of the biggest and most irritating misconceptions I think is out there. A lot of people like to make the argument that Gonzaga should play in a tougher conference because it prepares them better. There's not a single team you can find with a better resume over the last 5 years in the NCAA tournament than Gonzaga.
Well, haven't they made the Sweet 16 like 16 years in a row?
Right. That's why.
Well, then I think that means they're prepared for the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Because it's not like they're going out early. I think Gonzaga may be peaking at the right time. Mm-hmm. But I know John has already accused me of having biases, Jay, and I do have a Gonzaga 20-1 ticket that I bet like way back. I know that number was available all year and better numbers were available. I bet it like at the start of the season. So I have a bias on this one. So I'll have to defer.
I think they're a little relaxed too. I think that they're in a spot where a lot of people are kind of dismissing them. They're not as good as they were, and they're not a high-profile team going into this tournament. There's no pressure whatsoever. And in fact, they might probably come into this tournament with a little chip on their shoulder, and they might be hitting their stride just now. I mean, they looked fantastic over this last week or so. And again, no pressure, playing with house money. Those are the teams that are very dangerous in my mind.
We may be seeing them right back here in 2 weeks because the West Regional is at T-Mobile. I assume Gonzaga will be probably the 3 seed in the West, something like that, right? So I don't think they're quite a 2 seed, but they could certainly be a team that we could see in Nevada, Las Vegas for the regional. That'd be kind of cool. I might need that day off, boss. We'll talk about it.
Okay, I was going to say, Jay, you can answer him? Like, what's this? I applied for.
I was like, I just looked away.
I applied for credentials for that day too.
It sounded like a
hopefully,
yes, but
what I mean?
go ahead. Go to the next one.
I'm hoping. All right, let me ask you one last West Coast Conference question then. All right, so Gonzaga, St. Mary's. Gonzaga is 12-1. St. Mary's is 40-1. Liability is always a reflection. Is that just it? Why is there such a gap between St. Mary's and Gonzaga on your futures board?
I think it's 2 things. We have a different opinion on Gonzaga and St. Mary's, but the main reason is liability. As we mentioned earlier, we have some liability connected to Gonzaga, and that's the main reason why you see a big gap between those 2.
And people are going to be betting Gonzaga. They always do.
Well, especially after that performance.
They're
right?
going to be betting. Gonzaga will be a popular. We talk about the teams that people will bet after the selection show, after the brackets come out. Gonzaga is going to be near the top of that list because they just won the West Coast Conference, and people are used to betting on them. They're always a high ticket count number team. I know they're out there in the West Coast Conference, but they're almost like a blue blood program at the window.
Yeah.
People love to bet on Gonzaga.
And I think they've been pretty trimmed down over the last few years. And this year, you're getting a little better odds than what you've seen in years past. So there's a little value there in many eyes.
All right, we'll get you out of here. We have two things really quick we'll hit on before we get you guys out of here. The first of which is, John, you mentioned a Gonzaga ticket that you have. Are there any teams you guys specifically like in this entire thing as we're getting closer to the March Madness, outside of the one that you mentioned, John?
I liked Texas a lot, but their coach decided to go off the reservation and got himself fired in the middle of the season. That was the team that I really liked. I bet them like 30-1 before the season started. I thought they were going to be awesome. The fact that they're a 2 seed, even though the coach went AWOL and got fired, I think shows that they are awesome.
Rodney Terry's a solid coach too.
They're doing much better than I would have thought.
Yeah,
because I made that bet because of Chris Beard. Because I thought he was that great of a coach. That's why I bet Texas. So for him to get fired was pretty disappointing. But I do like Texas. I do think Houston is the best team.
Yeah.
But we're going to find out because they played in a weak conference too. But if you made me pick one team as the best, I'd probably point to Houston.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what we said earlier. The cream rises, so I'm not going out on a limb here. I think Houston. I love Houston. I love defensive teams. Teams that can really rely on their defense, and UCLA and Houston play terrific defense. So those are the two teams I'm looking at.
Yeah, UCLA, we should note for our audience, too, that they did just lose Jalen Smith, one of their better defenders. So that's going to be something to watch because they're pretty deep. But that is excuse me, and I should say Jalen Clark, not Jalen Smith. Yeah, Jalen Clark, and that is going to be an injury.
Two well-coached teams.
Yes.
I definitely agree with what Jay said about their defense. Just want to add in, those are two of the coaches I respect the most. Yep. So those are teams I like. That I like those two. I don't know how good the Big 12 teams are, and I don't know how. I know they're very good. I know it's the best conference, but I don't know how good they are. Are they gonna? Is it gonna be like Baylor 2 years ago, where they just blew through the whole field, or are they gonna be running on fumes because they had to fight so hard in their regular season? I don't know. We'll see.
All right, and the last one, actually, we'll switch gears just really quickly. Just a general question as we're approaching the new league year in the National Football League. How closely do you guys monitor free agency, and how big of an impact does it actually have on some of these future odds in the National Football League?
We have a whole team looking at that on a day-to-day basis, and we're keeping track and keeping track of that ticker and the news that breaks out on Twitter. I mean, that's where we get most of our information. Our guys do a very, very good job of monitoring what's going on out there and adjusting accordingly. So it's something that we do not ignore. It's something that we're always keeping an eye on because we know those type of additions and signings and trades, whatever it might be, could impact those odds tremendously in some cases.
You preemptively lower the odds, right? I mean, you've got, like, in case Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets.
Well, those are built in.
The odds are here. We don't know which team Tom Brady is going to unretire to join. I'm hearing Dolphins. I've heard 49ers. We got to keep an eye on it. I don't know how much of an upgrade he is at this point in his career.
Well, not to bring up bad memories, you guys did get a little burned by that last year, right? With the bets coming in.
And I expect him to do it again this year. To be honest with you, I think at some point he'll have a change of heart.
Right.
You think?
And I do. And but is he better than Tua Tagovailoa? I don't know about that.
Is Derek Carr better than Andy Dalton? Because the statistic last year would say that is not the case.
I don't know about that either, but you always
a little better.
But like we took some
not much.
Right after Carr went there, we took a series of bets on the Saints to win the NFC. So you have to figure this is where the money is going to come in, and you got to react to the money on some level. So I don't think Derek Carr is anything special, but we knew that people were going to bet the Saints or whichever team he signed with.
You want my proclamation now?
Yeah.
Carolina Panthers, NFC South winner. Let's go. Okay. CJ Stroud's going to lead them to victory.
I could see that. I mean, that's a wide open division. If the Bucs are actually going to go with Kyle Trask, which I doubt, and the Falcons are going to go with Ritter, there's really no reason at all why the Panthers couldn't win the division. And they were playing well at the end of the year. And I like Frank Reich.
Yep.
Right. So you just bounce around following Frank Reich. Is that what you do?
Pretty much all that is, yeah. And if the rumors are true that Phillip Rivers could come back, I'm there too.
That'd be great. Maybe they just bring back everybody. Brady and Rivers.
I mean, if it's Rivers and Reich again in Carolina, I mean, why not?
Maybe Eli Manning can come back.
Yep. The common denominator here, Phillip Rivers, a bunch of kids, Tom Brady, a bunch of kids, and now forcing their way out of retirement. I think, come on.
Okay.
We see it matters.
Maybe Peyton Manning can come back.
Yeah. Does he have a lot of kids?
He's got a son that's supposed to be really good at football.
Does he have an arm? It's kind of a problem.
Yeah, his name's Marshall Manning.
Yes.
Supposed to be very good.
No, I meant Peyton coming out of retirement.
Hey, well, he didn't have an arm the last two years.
Yeah, right.
They won the Super Bowl.
By the way, Arch Manning, some bad stories we're already hearing out of Texas. Lost his student ID twice already, reportedly. I don't know. Seems lost. Not really great.
He's a kid.
All right. That does it for the Odds Makers presented by Superbook Sports. Again, you can follow us up on Twitter at Superbook Sports. Follow everything we do there. And, of course, the website, superbooksports.com. And come out and see us in any one of our many locations. Until then, we will talk to you next week here on the Odds Makers.